I kept saying, look, we can raise more money. I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I need some help. So we hired someone to go out and sell sponsorships. You know, she did a good job of that. Then we hired a second director, and things started going a little bit in the wrong direction for me. It became more about the money than it did about the relationships and the charitable aspect of it.
When you think of the people who have shaped the Lake of the Ozarks to where it is today, you cannot leave Ron Duggan out of the conversation. And one could argue the west side of the lake has become what it has become almost solely on the back of this man. In this first episode of a two-part series, Ron shares how he first found his way to the lake, the origin story of Captain Ron's, and the disruption it caused, and how his lakeside bar turned into the home of the biggest powerboat event in the country, the Shootout. We talk about the rapid growth of the Shootout, the moment he considered selling it all, and why he ultimately changed his mind. He also gives his take on the Shootout's controversial move to a new location and what that means for the lake community. This is Lake History from the man who helped write it. The legend. Many of you know him as the owner of Captain Ron's. Many of you know him as the host of the Shootout for the last 15 plus years. 17 years.
There you go.
The owner, many of you may not know, of Sunrise Title, an event pioneer, community builder. I mean, you're an icon at the lake. Ron Duggan, thanks for being here with me, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
What did I miss? I know there's a lot of stuff in there.
You know, we've had two other restaurants, Cannon Smoke Saloon. El Capitan was a Mexican restaurant. And my wife had a coffee shop called the Funky Buffalo, which is still in operation today in Camden 10. Been involved in a lot of different events, been members of a lot of different organizations, Laurie Sunrise Beach Rotary Club, the B&I group, we got that started, and the B&I Buccaneers, and was on the chamber board back when it was called the Laurie Sunrise Beach Hurricane Deck Chamber of Commerce. Wow. Now that really dates myself, so I'll probably stop there, but yeah, been involved in a lot of different things. I coached basketball for 37 years, 30 years in the AAU arenas.
Here. Really?
Yep, and then 7 years at Max Creek High School. Coached down there. Got to coach my son for a couple of years, and then I coached my daughter from junior high through high school, and that was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
So yeah, been involved a little bit.
Very cool. So well, that's a good segue, because I don't know that many of my listeners, followers, really know the origin story. And so my first question is, are you born and raised at the lake, or did you come here at one point? And kind of walk us through the story of what led you to here, what led you to what started everything, and kind of give us that story.
Sure. Grew up in Kansas City. My father was an attorney. He moved down here and kind of started practicing down here part-time, and then came down full-time and started a title insurance company back in 1982. Asked me to come down and run it. I thought living at the lake for a 23-year-old was really not the thing to do. There wasn't anything happening. But 9 months later in '83, I moved down here with my wife and son, and had another son on the way, and got in the title insurance business. Had no idea what I was doing, but I figured it out real quick. Then I bought the company from my father, and then back in 2004 and 5, I had some people come in and told me to diversify. So I bought this old rundown restaurant called Kula Bay in 2006. It was literally a hole in the wall, but it had a great footprint. You know, the property was fantastic. I was going to tear it down and build condominiums. Thankfully, I did not do that, because 2 years later, the condominium market fell apart.
Yeah.
I would have been one of those bankrupt.
07, 08.
Yeah,
right,
one of those bankrupt developers. Yeah. So luckily, we were in the restaurant business. Had no idea what I was doing in the restaurant business. Had a buddy of mine that ran the restaurant for me for a little while, and then he went missing in action, and so I got to jump in and learn the business. And we had our first summer.
Did you keep the name?
No, we immediately changed it to Captain Ron's.
Okay.
We were watching the movie, and we're sitting around the table trying to decide what we were going to name it, and we kind of liked, the pirate theme. It was pretty hot at that time.
Was it also a pirate theme prior?
No,
okay.
It wasn't. It was just
Kula Bay sounds kind of tropical.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they had gunny sacks on the ceiling, and they had thatch everywhere.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was a neat piece of property, and so we watched that movie, and they're like, well, you know what? Let's just name it Captain Ron's after you. And I'm like, okay. So that's how that all got started. Then we had a first summer. We had a great summer in 2007, and then the fire departments talked to me about moving the Shootout over here.
Wow.
We secured the event, got the permit on it, and then I immediately started tearing the place apart and redoing it.
Holy cow.
So everything you see on the property with the walkways was all developed because of the shootout.
Really?
Yeah, we built the whole place. We bought additional houses on the property,
Yeah.
put a walkway that accesses all of them, put in more docks. We only had one dock at the time. Then we bought a second dock that summer, the first summer, and then we ended up buying 4 more for the shootout. So everything we did here was to build it around the shootout,
Sure.
that event. In
Yeah.
2008, we got our feet wet with the shootout, and rest is history.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought Ron's existed far before the shootout came here.
It just one summer, honestly. Our 2007 was our first summer, and it was an old mobile home park. 1960 mobile home park. We took most of the mobile homes and crunched them up and put them in dumpsters because they were sold, they couldn't move them.
Really?
I didn't make a lot of people very happy at the time. It took me 3 years to change the look of the place, but hopefully it was for the better. You know, we started putting in beaches and things like that.
I think so. So the mobile home park, was that where now you have like campsites and RV stuff?
Actually not, it's where the parking lot is.
Really?
Yeah, and where the pirate ship is up there. Those
wow.
were all mobile homes.
Wow, they had some nice piece of property, didn't they?
They did, yeah. But some people, it's hard to get them to move. You know, some people were married, they're on their property, and they ended up taking the deck all down and taking it home and rebuilding it at their home because they were married on it. But for the most part, everybody was pretty understanding. And
wow,
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. So that kind of, I mean, that gives us really, that is the origin story. I love that. And so 08 was a big turning point, shootout. And did you know when the shootout occurred after that first year, like, this is going to be big?
We knew it had a lot of potential. The first year, we just kind of job shadowed Osage Beach and Sunrise Beach Fire Departments and Gravois Mill. They were heavily involved in Mid-County. And so we just kind of watched and saw what they did because it was just a weekend event.
Yeah.
The next year, as soon as we were done, Jeff Dorhauer said, "Keys are yours, man. You guys did a great job, so have at it." Kent Morris ran all the water operations for us. I was like, you know what? This could be a $500,000 a year event if we want it to be, and let's start adding some things to raise additional money. And so that's where we got charities and more charities involved.
Yeah.
Was, hey, we want to put this event on, you know, like a mini shootout, and we need some people to run it. So let's get a hold of this group and say, hey, if you'll work this event, you know, we'll give you some money from the event.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we grew it. I kind of had a formula on how to split up the proceeds, and so we gave everything back. I mean, nobody was paid. You know, we paid our bills, and then everything else was donated back to the community. And actually, that's kind of the same premise I'm using for the Cannonball Run event.
Yeah, which we'll get to that. We'll get to all the exciting things coming because, you know, now let me fast forward to where I think it was a couple of years ago when you said, I'm gonna put this place up for sale.
We did last year.
Was it that recent?
Yeah, we decided over the winter. You know, it really wasn't any reason. We just thought the market was right, and we thought we'd just give it a shot. And I wasn't really interested in just selling to anybody just to be done. We were looking for that right buyer. In fact, I had 2 offers, and I told them no because they didn't want the shootout anymore. And so I turned away 2 people because of that.
Damn.
And then I had another person want to change the name, and I was like, nah, not interested in that either. And someone else said he was just going to tear down the place and put a big RV park in, and I'm like, nah, we're not. I don't want to sell that bad.
So you're selling.
But I did have a contract.
You're selling it with contingencies about name.
Yeah.
Basically keeping the same vibe and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this place has been great for the community. It's been great for our employees. It's been great for the charities over the years. And so I wasn't really interested in letting someone take that away from this area. But yeah, I did have a contract early last year, and that went until about May or so, and then he decided he didn't have quite enough money, and
really,
so it kind of fell apart. And then over the winter, I hired a new general manager for here, and I wasn't going to hire someone and then turn around and sell the place on them and say, oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry you left your other job, but now you're out of a job. And so we took it off the market and guaranteed him we would do that when we hired him. So
that's awesome. So let's just jump into that then, because that's one of the newest, biggest changes here. So tell us about that hire and why you chose him.
He has a lot of kitchen experience, an executive chef, but he was also over at the Lodge of the Four Seasons, so he was used to big crowds at the lake and used to a big place, that can handle a lot of people. And, we have a lot of people here at times, especially in the month of July. He's a big numbers guy too, and which I am in the title business. I'm a big numbers person. And so So that was very appealing to me, and so I wanted someone to kind of look after my interest and make sure that they're watching all the dollars and make sure we can make money.
Yeah.
So I don't make a living off of this place. I never have. My living's off the title company, and so but it'd be nice to make money every once in a while.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're not all in the business or have the luxury of being charitable organizations.
Right.
Although you've done a really incredible job of that, and you've already mentioned it, but we've talked about it on other episodes talking about the shootout, because the shootout has just become so massive, and it's, I mean, the Super Bowl of Powerball racing, right? And
sure.
it's as you even mentioned, it brings hundreds of thousands of people to the lake just for that event. And so many ignorant people out there think it's just all about money. It is all about money. It's all about raising money to go to charity.
Yeah, well, the original idea was, we were going to give everything away, and that's changed. And so, it changed for a reason. About five or 6 years ago, I needed help. It was getting very large.
Yeah.
And so we hired a director at that time, and for a couple of years. And her job was to, I kept saying, look, we can raise more money. I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I need some help. So we hired someone to go out and sell sponsorships. And she did, she did a good job of that. And then we hired a second director, and things started going a little bit in the wrong direction for me. It became more about the money than it did about the relationships and the charitable aspect of it. Even though they do give a ton of money away, it just wasn't the direction I was wanting to go with it. And I'd been doing it for 17 years, so I chose to step away. And
that was just this past August.
It was, right. And then they made some decisions that weren't my decisions.
Yeah.
So
do you think that either putting it up for sale or obviously stepping down, do you think that played a big role in their decision to move?
Well, the putting it up for sale shouldn't have, because I was very, very cautious about that, and I was very clear with the board that I wasn't going to let anything happen to the shootout. I have my heart and soul in that event. My whole family. That's all they know. I have a daughter. She doesn't know anything else. I mean, she was a baby when we bought the place. She wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
She was involved in a lot of the different things. My sons were also, and my son Michael, my oldest son, ran the place for a while, so he was heavily involved in it. So, I made it very clear that whether I sold or not, I was going to protect the shootout. I think me stepping away from it, I think then they felt that maybe it was time to move, and even though I was hopeful and had put some things in place to keep the event here, and then it just, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, and as you probably know, there's a lot of Westsiders that are not happy about that decision.
Not happy.
Yeah. And I'm technically one of them. I mean, I'm down the Big Niangua, and the proximity and the ease of getting to the shootout is awesome.
And we'd love to have it back.
Yeah.
So if things don't go very well over there, obviously we've got a great location, a great piece of property, and a great course. It has been for 17 years. And so I was really surprised when the Water Patrol moved the event. They told me 17 years ago they were never going to move it until I wanted it moved. Yeah. And I made it very clear I did not want it moved. Yeah. So that was really disappointing. But it is what it is, and you move on from there.
Yeah, yeah. Which now leads you to a lot of exciting changes.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned the new hire, but you got a lot of other things going on. You've touched on what's coming during that same week of the shootout, which makes a lot of sense. But there's things before that. For example, at the time of this recording, there's going to be a treasure hunt this coming weekend. That'll already have been gone and passed, but I can tell you from personal experience. I have a 6-year-old. We'll be here. Like, she loves to get dirty and dig up find a treasure. Yeah, and so you anticipate that'll be every early May going forward?
Probably May, 1st June, somewhere in there. But my wife actually started that event, and she ran the very first treasure hunt that we had for the shootout. And it was a lot of fun. It keeps growing every year. And the Rotary Club approached me about hosting this event, and I was thrilled to do it for them.
Cool.
So it's a fundraiser for them. I've participated in the past. My daughter is actually graduating this weekend, and so I'm not sure whether I'll be out there in the sand digging, but I know all the kids that are coming in for the graduation, they're all going to be here, and it's really a cool event.
Absolutely.
And they've got some wonderful prizes, and so it'll be good.
Called the Pirates Plunder now, right?
It is.
Awesome. So if you've never experienced that before, literally kids, adults even, literally digging in the sand right behind us, for literal treasures. And there's a lot of great giveaways.
There are. They've got some really fantastic.
Can you tease?
I mean, there's a gift, something to give away for everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it's a gift card or.
You don't come away empty-handed.
You do not.
Yeah.
But they've got, they've got a floating tiki bar. I think they've got wet steps, which they've been generously donating to. I don't know. There's 6 or 7, items that are $800 or more, and instead of doing one grand prize, they're going to do 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's
grand
cool.
Prizes.
It was my buddy a few years ago that won the go-kart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really ironic. It was his little 4 or 5-year-old.
He wasn't here the year that we couldn't find the key.
I know, no, because when they turned it, it turned on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we had one year there was 10 chests out there, 10 keys, and they found 9 of them.
Oh no, not the winning.
And I'm
one.
like, so where's your map that says X marks the spot? And they just kind of looked at me dumbfounded. I'm like, you didn't make a map, did you? So never could find it. We actually had to draw names out of a hat of those 9 people to see who got it. It's
never come up?
It's the only time that has ever happened.
That's wild. So that's still potentially somewhere in the ground, or a critter got it.
Yeah, it's probably still buried.
Wow,
out there.
That's cool. Okay, so that's one event. There's a lot of other things that are going on. There's now a permanent food truck, right? What else? Tell me all about the things that are changing here.
So we made some improvements out on our covered deck. We put some glass garage doors out there, and we had some deck shades that were getting a little bit rough. And honestly, the weather really was a problem. If the wind was blowing, it was not very good to sit out there. So we made those changes, which were much needed. We put a big pavilion over our front entrance instead of a tent that we had been renting for years. It's really turned out to be a really nice space.
Yeah.
We actually, our Cannon Smoke Barbecue, we really wanted to bring it back. We closed it during COVID and then sold the building, and we've got fantastic barbecue sauce. It's our own sauce. If anybody remembers the old B&P Hickory Pit days, it's almost the same as what their sauce was. It's a little bit different because we had to change it.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. And so I wanted to bring that back, and so my wife found a food truck over the winter. Cool. We went and got it, and we've been selling barbecue sauce up by my title insurance company so I could have lunch up there when it's open.
That's awesome.
And now we're going to bring it down here for the summer. It's down here parked permanently for the rest of the summer. It's going to be open Friday through Mondays. And
Memorial to Labor, is that pretty much?
Memorial Day, Labor Day, yeah.
Awesome.
And then in the off season, we'll just kind of see what days it'll be open and see how busy it is.
Awesome.
But it's good. It should take a little pressure off our kitchen, and really there's no reason not to have a great meal, and you don't have to wait an hour and a half to get a table.
Yeah, no doubt. So, and it's conveniently located next to the Rum Shack.
It is.
Yep.
And so that will be open also when the Cannon Smoke Barbecue truck is open.
Perfect. And if you're unfamiliar with Captain Ron's too, I mean, it's also right next to the little playground area. Usually there's a bounce house. I don't know if that's going to be back.
That won't be back.
Okay.
That's where the food truck is now.
Okay.
But we do have a swing set area, and of course we have the beach for the kids.
This is, I would argue, one of the best places to bring your kids. But I've also had many good times here just with the adult weekends. So it really caters to everyone.
It does, and it's very family friendly, and we really like that. Obviously, I've got 5 kids, and so it was always important. I remember when we put in the beach, my son Colton was always, where do you want to go to dinner? I want to go to Frankie and Louie's because they have a beach. And so I went and talked to the owners of Frankie and Louie's and said, do you guys mind if I put a beach in? He's like, no, I'll show you how it's done. And I'm like, great.
That's cool.
So we put the beach in, and now they come.
What year was that?
That was in 2008.
Wow. Okay, so right at the time when everything was happening.
Yeah, we spent about $4 million on the property making improvements.
Wow. And I haven't even mentioned, you don't want to assume everybody knows where we are on the lake. We're in Sunrise Beach, right? Just past the Hurricane Deck Bridge, the original Hurricane Deck Bridge, on the 34-mile marker, roughly?
34 and a half.
34 and a half, right?
Yep.
Deep in a cove, very well protected, so you've got plenty of, your boat's not going to get beat up.
No, it's a no-wake cove.
Yep.
And so that was important that we got that done to protect all the people that come in.
Yeah. Thanks for watching part 1. In part 2, we get into what's next for Captain Ron's, including what it's like hosting massive events like Aquapalooza, what the Cannonball Run is all about, and why Ron thinks it might be the next big thing at the lake. We also talk legacy, what it all means to him, his advice for up-and-coming entrepreneurs, and where he sees the lake heading in the years to come. And I put him on the hot seat with some rapid-fire questions that include some famous visitors and an event that had beer dripping from the ceilings the following day. You won't want to miss this. So hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week.